112 meditations to discover your mystery within. To discover the mystery within by OSHO. The second question. OSHO, you spoke of Western psychology being rooted in Freudian concepts of pathology and of Eastern psychology using the supernormal as the base from which to evaluate a man. But as I look around me in the modern world, I see that most people fit Freud's category of pathology. 1 in a million fits the category of supernormal, and a small number actually fit the societal ideal of normal. Why is there so much pathology nowadays? And what would you consider to be the definition of normal? Get my specs so I can see exactly what I'm doing here. All right, let's get started. OSHO answers. Many things will have to be understood. It is not that very few are there who achieve their peaks. Many are there, but you don't have the eyes to see them. Whenever you look around, you see that which you can see. How can you see that which you cannot see? Your capacity to see determines many things. You hear that which you can hear, not that which is there. If a Buddha passes, you may not be able to recognize. And you really were there when Buddha passed, but you missed him. You were there. You were there when Jesus was alive, but you crucified him. It is difficult to see because you see in your own ways. You have concepts, you have categories, you have attitudes. Through them, you look at a Buddha and a Jesus. Jesus looked like a criminal to you. When Jesus was crucified, he was crucified with 2 other criminals. On each side, there was a thief. 3 persons were crucified together, and Jesus was just between 2 thieves. Why? He was considered to be an immortal criminal. Oh, an immoral criminal, somehow. And you were there to judge. Even if Jesus comes right now, you will judge again in the same way, because your judgment, your criteria have not changed. Jesus lived and stayed with anyone and everyone. He stayed in a prostitute's house, and the whole village went against him, but his values were different. The prostitute came, washed his feet, and with her tears, and said, I am guilty, I am a sinner, and you are my only hope. If you come to my house, I will be relieved of my guilt. I will become alive again. If Jesus would come to my house, then I am accepted. So Jesus went. He stayed there, but the whole town went against him. What type of man is he, staying with a prostitute? But for Jesus, love is the value, and no one has given such a loving invitation ever. He couldn't say no, and if Jesus had said no, he could not have been an enlightened man. Then he would have been seeking after social respectability. He was not seeking after respectability. In another village, the whole town came to Jesus with the woman who had sinned. In the Old Testament, it is written that if someone sins, she should be stoned to death. It is not that he should be. It is that she should be stoned to death, because only women sin. Man never sins, because all these scriptures are written by men. And this was a great problem, so they asked Jesus about it. They were playing a trick, because if Jesus would have said, no, don't kill this woman, don't be the judges, then they could say, you are against the scriptures. And if Jesus would have said, yes, kill the woman, stone her to death, then they would say, where has gone your message, love your enemy? And where has gone your message, judge ye not, that ye should not be judged? So they were playing a trick. They were creating a dilemma, a logical dilemma. Whatsoever Jesus would have said, he would have been trapped. But you cannot trap an enlightened man. It is impossible. It is impossible. And the more you try to trap him, you will get trapped with him. So Jesus said, the scripture is absolutely correct, but come forward, only those who have never sinned. Take these stones in your hands and murder this woman, but only those who have never sinned. The crowd started disappearing. Those who were standing in front went back, and because who will stone this woman? But they became enemies of Jesus. And when I say they, I mean you. You have always been here. You cannot recognize, you cannot see, you are blind This is why you always feel the world is bad and there is no enlightenment, that everyone is pathological. It is not so, but you can only see pathology because you are pathological. You can understand illness because you are ill. You cannot understand health because you have never been healthy. The language of health simply escapes you. I have heard about Jewish mystic Baal Shem. Someone came and asked Baal Shem, which is more significant, which is more valuable, wealth or wisdom? The man was asking the question for a reason, so Baal Shem laughed and said, of course wisdom is more significant, more valuable. Then the man said, then Baal Shem, the second question, I always see you, the wise man, waiting on the wealthy. You always go to rich people's houses. I never seen any wealthy man waiting on you, the wise one, and you say that wisdom is more valuable than wealth? Then explain this phenomenon to me. Baal Shem laughed and said, yes, wise men go to wealthy ones because they are wise and they know the value of wealth. And the wealthy ones are just wealthy, simply wealthy and nothing else. And they cannot understand the value of wisdom. Of course I go because I understand the value of wealth. And those poor idiots, they are just wealthy, nothing else. They cannot understand the value of wisdom, so they never come to me. If you see a saint going to a palace and you will say, okay, this man is not the saint. It is finished because you look through your own eyes. Wealth has meaning for you. You can only follow a saint who renounces wealth because you are wealth obsessed. You look through you, and whatsoever you say is more than you, or more about you than anyone else. It is always about you. You are the reference. When you say that Buddha is not enlightened, you don't mean that. You simply mean, for me, he does not look enlightened. But who are you? And does his enlightenment depend in any way on your attitude, your approach, your standpoint? You have fixed categories of thought, and you go on using them. To you, pathology is recognizable, but enlightenment is not. And you cannot understand that which is higher than you, remember. You can only understand that which is lower than you, or at the most on the same level. You cannot understand the higher. That is impossible. To understand the higher, you will have to move higher. You can understand the lower. Look at it in this way. A madman cannot understand you. It is impossible for a madman to understand you. He looks through his madness, but you can understand a madman. He is lower than you. The normal human being can understand abnormals who have gone below, pathological, but he cannot understand higher ones. Even a Freud is afraid. Jung has written in his memoirs that once it happened to him that he wanted to analyze Freud's dreams. He was one of Freud's greatest disciples. They were traveling to the United States on a ship. So for many days they were together. One day, Jung gathered courage. He was the most intimate disciple in those days, and he asked Freud, I would like to analyze your dreams. So just tell me any dreams. For many, many days, we will be together, so I will analyze it. What did Freud say? Freud said, what do you mean? If you analyze my dreams, I will lose my authority. I cannot tell you my dreams, he said, so afraid, because in his dreams, the same pathology, the same illness will be revealed, as he is revealing in others. Dreams, he said, I cannot lose my authority. I cannot tell you about my dreams. Freud, the greatest psychologist of this age, is prone to all the illnesses that anyone else is. When Jung said, I am going to leave you, he fell from his chair and became unconscious. He swooned. For hours he was unconscious because he was shocked just by the idea of a disciple leaving him, just by a disciple saying, I am going to leave you. If you say to a Buddha, I am going to leave you, can you conceive of him falling down and becoming unconscious? Even with all of the 10,000 disciples leaving him, he will be happy, so happy that he will feel it will be good if you go. Why? Your psychologists are also like you. They are not from above. They have the same problems. So one psychologist goes to another psychologist to be analyzed. It is not like one doctor going to another doctor to be treated. For doctors, it is okay. They can be forgiven. But for psychologists, it seems absurd. One psychologist going to another to be analyzed? What does it mean? He is an ordinary man. Psychology is just a profession. Buddha is not in any profession. He is not an ordinary man. He has awakened to a new reality. He has reached to a new state of being. Now he can look from a peak. He can understand you, but you cannot understand him. And howsoever he tries, it is really impossible to make you understand him. You will go on misunderstanding him unless you are caught not by his words, but by his personality. Unless you are caught by his magnetism, not by his words. Unless you become like an iron piece and you are caught by his magnetism, you will not be able to understand him. You will misunderstand. That is why you cannot see. But the world always has its enlightened persons. Pathology is recognized because we are pathological. So we can see and understand it. Secondly, even if there is only a single human being who has ever achieved enlightenment throughout human history, even if there is only one Buddha, he is enough to show you the possibility. If it can happen to one human being, why can it not happen to you? If one seed can become a flower, then every seed has the potentiality to become a flower. You may be just a seed, but now you know your future. Now you are aware that much more is possible. But with the human mind, the reverse is happening. It has been happening always. You see a cocoon and then it breaks, and then the butterfly moves. With man, it seems to be quite the reverse. Man is born as the butterfly, and then he enters the cocoon. Every child is like Buddha, is more Buddha-like than he will ever be again. Look at a child, look at his eyes. They are more Buddha-like than any adult's eyes. The way he sits, the way he moves, the grace, the beauty, the living in the moment. Even his anger is beautiful. It is total. And whenever anything is total, it is beautiful. Look at a child in anger, jumping and screaming. Just look. Don't be yourself concerned that he is disturbing you. Just look at the phenomenon. The anger is beautiful because the child is so totally into it that nothing is left behind. He is the anger, and he is so authentic that nothing is being suppressed. He is not withholding. He has moved and became anger. Look at the child when he loves, when he welcomes you. When he comes near to you, he is like a Buddha, but soon you will help him. The society will help him to enter the cocoon, and then he will die in it. From the cradle, we enter into the grave immediately. That is why so much pathology is there, because no one is allowed to be natural. The pathology is forced. You are caged, imprisoned in a dead pattern, and then your spontaneous being suffers. And then your spontaneous being suffers, and you cannot come out of it. This is why so much pathology is there. This pathology is man-created, and the more man becomes civilized, the more pathological he becomes. So now this is a criterion. If in your country there are less madmen, know well that you are less civilized. If in your country the madmen are growing and everyone is going insane and everyone is going to the psychoanalyst, know well you are the most civilized country in the world. When any country achieves optimum, everyone will have become mad. Civilization drives you mad because it is not allowing you to be your natural self. Everything is suppressed, and with suppression, everything is disturbed. You cannot even breathe naturally. Anything else is out of the question. Even your breath is unnatural. You cannot breathe deeply because the society does not allow deep breathing. Breathe deeply, because if you take deep breaths, you cannot suppress your instincts. If you want to suppress anything, you can observe the changes in breathing in yourself. If you are angry and you want to suppress it, what will you do? Immediately, you will stop breathing. With anger, breathing goes deep because anger will need a hot flow of blood in you. Anger will need more oxygen. Anger will need some chemical changes within you. And through breathing, those changes happen. So whenever you feel angry and you want to suppress it, you will not be able to breathe naturally. You will take shallow breaths. Look at a child and tell him not to do something. Immediately, his breathing will be shallow. Then he will not be able to breathe deeply, because if he takes deep breaths, he cannot follow your commands. Then he will do whatsoever he likes to do. So no one is ever taking deep breaths. If you take deep breaths, your sex center is massaged from within, and the society is against this. Take slow breaths, shallow breaths. Don't go deep, then the sex center is not hit. Really, civilized man has become incapable of deep sexual orgasm because he cannot take deep breaths. In the love act, your breathing must be so deep that your whole body becomes involved. Otherwise, you will not achieve orgasm. And then you will feel frustrated. So many people come to me and they say, there is no pleasure in sex. We go on doing it like a mechanical act, and energy is only lost. After it, we feel frustrated, depressed. The reason is not sex. The reason is only that they are not getting into it totally. It becomes local. So only semen is released. Then they feel weak and nothing is gained through it. If the whole body is involved like an animal, if every cell of the body is excited and starts shaking, if the whole body becomes like an electric force and feeling moves, if you become egoless, headless, and thinking is not there, if you are the body moving in a rhythm, vibrating in a rhythm, then you will have a deep pleasure out of it. You will feel relaxed, in a certain sense, fulfilled. But this cannot happen because you cannot take deep breaths. You are so afraid. Look at the body. The body has two poles. One pole is for intake. Your head is for intake. The upper pole is for intake of food, air, impressions, thoughts, anything you take in from the upper part. This is one pole. The lower body is for release. It is not for intake. You cannot take in from the lower. The lower body is to release, to relax. You take from the upper, and from the lower you release it. But the civilized man only takes in, never releases. This creates pathology. You go mad. It is just like eating food and then continuing to store it, never defecating. You will go mad. The other pole has to be used. If someone is miser, automatically he becomes constipated. Look at any miser. He will be suffering from constipation. Miserliness is a sort of spiritual constipation. So go on hoarding. Don't leave anything. Those who are against sex without knowing what they are doing are misers. They go on taking in food, but they will not release the sex energy. Then they will go mad. There is no need to release it only from the sex center. There is another possibility to release it from Shashrar, the highest center at the top of the head. That is what Tantra teaches. But it must be released. You cannot hoard it. Nothing can be hoarded in the world. The world is a movement, is a river. Take in and give out. If you take in and never give out, you become mad. This is what is happening. Everyone is taking and no one is giving. You become afraid when a moment of giving comes and you want just to take, even with love. You want the someone should love you. You want that someone should love you. The basic need is that you should love someone. Then you will be released. If someone loves you, that will not help because then you are taking in again. Both of these poles must be balanced. Then health happens. And that is what I call a normal being. A normal being is one whose taking in and giving out is parallel, balanced. He is normal. I call that man abnormal, who's taking in too much and whose giving out is unbalanced. He is not giving out at all. Even if he gives sometimes, it has to be forced. It is not his own. You can snatch something from him. You can force him to give, but he will not give. His giving is out of just like His giving out is just like an enema. It is not natural. You can force, so he will defecate, but he is not defecating. He is not ready. It is abnormal to just go on hoarding everything. Then he will go mad because the whole system is disturbed. This is abnormal, and supernormal is the one who gives and never takes in. These are three things. The abnormal one takes in and never gives out. The normal one, whose give and take are balanced, and the supernormal, who never takes in and only gives. A Buddha is a giver. A madman is a taker. He is at the opposite pole of a Buddha. If poles are balanced, you are a normal man. At least be normal, because if you cannot be normal, you will fall down and you will become abnormal. This is why dana, giving, is so much emphasized in all religions. Give. Whatsoever it is, give, and don't think in terms of taking. Then you will become supernormal. But that is a very far off thing. First, be normal, be balanced. Whatsoever you take in, give it back to the world. You just be the passage, don't hoard. Then you will never become mad. You will never be neurotic, schizophrenic, psychotic, or whatsoever you may call it. My definition of normal, of the normal man, is one who is balanced, absolutely balanced. Nothing is retained. He takes the breathing in and then he allows it to move out. The incoming breath and the outgoing breath are just the same, balanced. Try to be balanced. And always remember that you must give back that which you have received. You will be alive, healthy, silent, peaceful, happy. A deep rhythm will happen to you. And this rhythm happens through a balance of give and take. But we go on thinking in terms of taking in more and more. Whatsoever you take in without giving it out again will create disturbance, tension, suffering. You will become a hell. Before you take something in, always think to release something out. Have you observed that you always emphasize the breath that goes in? You never emphasize the breath that goes out. You take the breath in and then the body throws the breath out. Reverse it. You will be more normal. Emphasize the outgoing breath. Throw the breath out as much as you can and let the body take in. When you take in and you have not released, your lungs become filled with carbon dioxide. Then you go on taking in and you never release the entire lungs. You go on forcing the carbon dioxide inward. Then your breathing becomes shallow and the entire lungs are filled with carbon dioxide. First, throw it out and forget about taking it in. The body will take care of that itself. The body has its own wisdom and it is more wise than you. Throw the breath out and forget about taking in. Don't be afraid. You are not going to die. The body will take in, and it will take in as much as is needed. As much as you have thrown out, it will take in, and the balance will be there. If you take in, then you will be disturbed. Then you will disturb the balance because the hoarding mind is there. I have stayed in many, many houses, and I see that people have collected so many things that they cannot live. There is no space to live. And they go on hoarding. They go on hoarding. And they think that someday the things will be needed. Whatsoever is not needed, don't hoard. And if something is needed more by someone else than you, it is better to give it. Be a giver, and you will never be pathological. All the old civilizations were based on dana, on giving. And this modern civilization is based on hoarding. That is why more people are going abnormal, neurotic. Everyone is asking from where to get, and no one is asking where to go and give. To whom to give. Wow. It's timed out for 6 seconds. What does that mean? Hi, Amy Dorsey. What's this? Walid Wali. Hi. Yeah, reading from the Book of Secrets. 112 Methods to Discover the Mystery Within. A very great book. Talks about different techniques of meditation. Helps you to be able to discover the mystery within. It's a very powerful book, but you have to definitely use it with your own discretion. Starting to dive into it a little bit more because I'm noticing as I read, there's certain things that I'm able to discover. And there's a lot of learning in here. I'm still kind of new to this live thing, so kind of navigating a little bit. It says what's hidden chapter top filter community moderation. So participants, anyone, live chat on, message delay. All right, good. So let me see here if I can dive into one of the meditation techniques in this chapter. Actually, this chapter is the potentiality of the seed. It's pretty short. Doesn't have any techniques in this one. Let me see a technique here. All right, well, next time I'll get into a technique, but hey. Oh, hi, Fortnite God. What's going on, man? Everything good with you? Oh shoot, I still have you as the let me see if I still have you as a moderator. It says, what does this mean? Marcela Mendez was hidden. What does that mean? Oh, it was hidden. Fortnite God. Let's see if I can hear anybody though. You'd have to come up on the screen. What is this? Start a poll, start a Q&A. Okay. All right, listen, I'm gonna end this one, but I'll definitely be back on to share some more. But I think I did the whole series of the potentiality of the seed. The first, second, and the last question. So that's it for today. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Enjoy. Remember to do some diaphragmatic breathing. Breathe in from the stomach into the chest. Try to stay away from shallow breathing as much as possible.